Hello, everybody. Welcome to my Google Drive Sharing Files interactive video. It is interactive, which means it's going to have parts in there where are going to ask you to actually carry out some instruction, to have some hands-on experience using Google Drive and sharing files. So you will need a device to watch this video from, like you're watching it from right now. And you'll also need a laptop or a desktop nearby so that you can carry out the instructions within the video so you can get some experience using Google Drive sharing features. So let's first get logged onto Google Drive on your computer that you're using. And once you get logged into Google Drive, we're going to begin by sharing one of the files that you have saved on your Google Drive. So pick a file on your Google Drive. Let's say I'm going to go ahead and share this A1 class expectation file. And I'm going to go right click on this and I'm going to choose share. So a little sharing dialog box appears, and in this dialog box, the first thing I need to provide it is the person who I'm going to share this with. So let's say I want to share this with one of my colleagues. So I type that colleague's name in, and since it is a person that it's familiar with from the school system, I simply click on that, and that person's name gets populated in this list. And you can add as many people as you want and share this file with as many people as you want. The second thing that you need to do, besides telling it who's going to be sharing this file or seeing this file, is give them editing rights. You can either allow them to be able to edit this file, which means they can make changes to this file that is saved in your Google Drive. And by the way, they can also save this or edit this file at the same time you're editing this file. So you can do it at the same time, simultaneously, collaborating together, making editing changes to an individual document saved in your drive, which is really cool and exciting. But you could also change it so that all they can do is just make comments to the file, or you can even set it so that all they can do is view the file. I'm going to leave it on can edit though, and I'm going to go ahead and hit send. And now my colleague Donna will be able to make editing changes to this file right here that lives on my Google Drive. All right, what I'd like you to do is go ahead and pick a file on your Google Drive and go ahead and share this file with one of your colleagues and give that colleague whatever rights you'd like them to have so that they can either view, comment, or edit that particular file. Go ahead and pause the video and give that a try. All right, so now that I'm back at my Google Drive, you may be wondering, where does my colleague go to see the file that I just shared with them? Or where would I go to see files that people have shared with me? Very easy, the answer to this question. You simply look over on the left tasked navigation area here and go into the shared with me area. In the shared with me are all the files that other people have shared with you. And you can simply open up any of these files, and depending on the rights that they've given you, you can either view, comment, or make editing changes to that file. Now, if I wanted to share a particular file with a student, I'm going to do it the exact same way. Let's say, for example, I want to share this B1 file with one of the students. So I would simply right-click on the file. I would choose Share. But rather than typing in the student's name, I could use their student ID number. So if I know the student's ID numbers, I would simply type them in. For example, let's say that's one of my students. And if it were really one of my students, their name would populate right underneath it, and I would select it, and it would have them as one of the students that actually exists in my class. Since I don't have any students enrolled in any of my classes, I can't do that, so it's not showing up like that. So what I would have to do is after this, I would put @bbstudents.com. And then of course I'd have to decide what kind of rights I want them to have for this particular. Notice it populated it now. It put Chris Jarrell's name in there. Over here I would go ahead and determine what kind of rights I'd want Chris to have. Let's say I just want him to have viewer rights for this particular file. And then I'd simply hit send. And now Chris has access to view this particular file, and where he would find it would be in the shared with me folder or shared with me area on his Google Drive. Now later you can go back and change who you gave access to if you'd like to. I could always go back to this particular file. I could right click on it, I could choose share, and I could click on, it says shared with, and these are the two people that I've shared this file with. I could click on either one of these names right now and it would pull up a list of everybody who I've shared with, and also it determines what kind of access rights I've had. Let's say, you know what, I don't want Chris to have any more access to this file, so I will simply remove him from the list, and now Chris does not have viewing rights or editing rights or any kind of rights at all to view this particular file, and I'd simply hit Save Changes. And what would happen on Chris's end is when he'd go into his Shared With Me folder, that file would no longer be available for him to look at. All right, the same thing, the sharing idea, applies for folders that live on your Google Drive. For example, let's say I have a folder that's inside my A1 folder called A1 Assignments. And I want to share this folder with all of my students in my A1 class so that I don't have to keep sharing each individual assignment with them. I can simply put a file inside this folder, and anything that's been inserted inside this folder will be able to be viewed by anybody who's been given access to this folder. So I'm going to go ahead and share or give access to this folder to all of the students in my A1 class. So I simply right click on the folder, I simply click share, and now in this people name here, I will go ahead and begin adding all of the students who are in my A1 class, like again, this would happen much faster for you because you guys have your students in there. It would automatically start recognizing those student ID numbers as soon as you start typing them. For me, because I don't actually have these students in my class, I've got to add the @vbstudents.com at the end. So I'll go ahead and add another student. And I'd continue adding students to it until all of the students who are in my A1 class are in this list. Then over on the side, I would tell it, I want to just give my students viewing rights. I don't want to give them editing rights so they can make editing changes to the assignment directions themselves. I just want them to see the assignment so that they can actually access the assignment so they know the directions. So now that I have all of my students listed in here and I have the access rights set, I simply hit send. And now this entire folder, when my students go to their Shared With Me area, they will see this A1 assignment folder that lives in there. And anything that I put inside that folder, my students will have access to. So here's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to take one of your existing folders, and I'd like you to right click on it and share that folder with one of your colleagues. Then I'd like you to right click and share that folder with one of your students. But just give them, in both cases, just give them viewer access. Go ahead and pause the video and give that a try, and then come back to the video when you're done. All right, so here's something else that I can also do. Inside, let me go back to my Google Drive for a moment. Inside my A1 folder, let me go inside there, I made another folder in here called A1 Project Collaboration. I want to share this folder with, again, my entire A1 class, and I want to share anything that's inside it, of course, with my A1 class. So anything that gets put inside that folder will be available to anybody who's been shared with. So when I choose share, I'm going to go ahead and start listing all of my students again. Go ahead and typing my students' IDs in here. And notice now it's starting to pop up. That's kind of nice. Wasn't doing that before for me. Must be recognizing and liking me now. All right, so I'll go ahead and add these students to it and pretend I continue to add more and more students. This time, however, I'm going to leave it on Can Edit. And what that's going to mean is anything that I put inside this folder, the students will be able to make changes to. So what I would put inside here are projects that I would want my students to collaboratively work on in groups or pairs or maybe as the entire class. So that is possible with Google Drive and with the Google Sharing feature. So I have all of my students listed in here. Let's say I had 30 students, so I'd go ahead and add all of their student ID numbers. Then of course I'll tell it what kind of rights this particular folder will have, and I will hit send. And then my students will see this A1 project collaboration folder in their share with me area on their Google Drive, and they will be able to make any editing changes they want to any of those files. Now remember, the original files live on my Google Drive, but they have access to them on their Google Drive, which is a very exciting thing. Okay, there's one last thing I'd like to talk about, and that's having your kids make folders that they can share with you or their classmates. So if a student is logged on to their Google Drive, let's pretend I'm a student for a moment, and the student wants to turn in their work electronically to their teacher, what the student could do is create a folder on their Google Drive, and they could call that folder turned in work. And that folder, if they right click on it and choose share, they could share that folder with you, their teacher. So let's pretend I'm a student and I'm going to share this with one of my teachers. So let's go ahead and I'll go ahead and put in Bert Wicks. He's my English teacher, let's pretend. And I'm going to leave it, the student's going to leave it, so that Mr. Wicks has editing rights to all of the files that get put into this folder, so that of course he can add comments to that or corrections to it and maybe put a grade on there if he wants to, and hit send. And now Mr. Wicks will be able to go to his shared with me area, and he will see a folder in there called turned in work. And that turned in work folder will have all of the work from that particular student. And you know what? It might even be a better idea for, rather than just to put in turned in work, for the student to include their name on that folder. So rather than just saying turned in work, they can put in their last name maybe and then turned in work, because Mr. Wicks is going to have several folders in his shared with me of other students who have created shared folders with him so that they can turn in work electronically. And if he just has a bunch of folders in there called turned in work, he's not going to know whose folder belongs to who. So again, from a student point of view, they can create folders on their Google Drive and they can share them with their teachers so that they can turn in work electronically by simply putting it into that folder that they've shared with their teacher. The students can also share any files or folders with their classmates the same way. Right click on the object, share it, type in the student's student ID number, and give them the kinds of access rights and privileges they want them to have. All right, I hope that clears up any confusion, or hope you might have learned something new about Google Drive and the sharing features that are available on Google Drive. Have a great day, everybody.